Welcome to Coffee Chit Chats with Chett. There is a staggering statistic out there right now, and I see it every January. 88% of people who have set a New Year's resolution have failed by now. Why, you might be asking yourself? Well, simply put, from my perspective, I think it's because people are only focusing on what they want versus who they want to become. In this blog, I'm going to be highlighting none other than James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, because if you are someone that falls within that 88%, this video will help you. This book is seriously everywhere right now, and personally, I've already read it twice, but I thought it was the best book to start off this series for the new year because I know a lot of you are watching this because you're looking for avenues and different strategies on how you yourself can reach your full potential. And you might have goals this year as it pertains to health, business, community, finance, something else that I can't think of right now. And you might be struggling. You might be struggling for lots of different reasons, but in this blog, I want to highlight 3 things from this book that I think will really help you right now and get you past any inertia, any feelings of stuckness, any feelings of failure you might be having right now so that you can catapult yourself to that next version of you. So first, let's talk about one reason why you might be failing and not reaching the goals that you're setting. So number 1, we tend to have an expectation on what progress looks like, and it's wrong. I don't know why our brains are wired like this, but for whatever reason, our brains really start to default to a linear way of thinking as it pertains to progress. So take a look at one of the graphs that James Clear's put in his book. The y-axis here is results, and the x-axis here is time. Our brain's understanding typically thinks that progress should look like this. And so that as time progresses, we start to see results. But in actuality, what success tends to look like is something more like this. And it's between these 2 lines right here. Clear calls that out as being the valley of disappointment. And so if you are someone who has the expectation that when you start something, and if your goal is here, you're going to be getting incremental rewards as you go along, but yet you are tending to not really experience any results for quite some time, you fall into this valley of despair. And that is something that can be really, really hard to get at because it triggers a lot of stories within us about failure. A second big reason why people tend to fail and not reach their goals is because they're focusing on outputs versus inputs and systems. James Clear states in his book that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. There were many game-changing aha moments for me in this book, and this was one of them. In other words, instead of becoming obsessed with your goals, how do you find joy in the journey? Focusing on small changes, small habits, and getting 1% better every day, and creating systems to ensure those habits remain in place. And so for me, for example, this is one that I did a while ago, and it's now one of the habits that I have. So my goal was to run a half marathon. And at the point of time when I set that goal, I was only running 5 kilometers. And so it was quite a big stretch to get up and get ready to run that half marathon. And so what James goes over in his book is this notion of cue, craving, response, reward. And so for me, in order to cement this into my overall lifestyle and to really start creating habits, rituals, and routines around this, I knew that I needed to do this in the morning because I have a job, I'm really busy, I have a family, I have all these things, but in the morning is my time and I know that I can control that. And so for me, my goal was to get up early so that I could train. So my cue was my alarm. Craving, this is a tricky one. I don't know about you, but when I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I think about isn't how much I want to exercise and get out the door. And so for me, what I learned to do is start to trick my brain to think about how good it's going to feel to run. So I focus on the craving of the feeling that I know that I'm going to get from running. And my response to that is to put on my running clothes, and my reward is that feeling I get. And the system that I needed to create around myself in order to set this equation up for success: 1, I needed to go to bed early. 2, I needed to set my clothes aside at night. And 3, I needed to have my phone outside of my room so that I had to physically get up in the morning to turn off my alarm. So this is a very basic and quick example of how I was able to go from only running 5 kilometers to running a half marathon by increasing my training and prioritizing training in the morning. My cue was my alarm clock. My craving was to really focus on how good a run is going to make me feel. My response was to put on my running clothes, and my reward was getting that feeling after a run was complete. The system that I needed to create in order to enable this equation for success, I had to start going to bed earlier. I had to set aside my running clothes at night and literally put them right beside my bed. So I had to basically walk on them to get out of the door of my bedroom. And then 3, I had to put my phone outside of my bedroom because it physically made me get up, go and turn off my alarm, which made me wake up and start my day and start my routine. The third point that I wanted to bring up from this book is this: to create lasting change at scale, you need to be clear on the person you want to become. Helen Keller said, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." Compelling visions have advanced humans in various ways. It's helped us go to the moon. It's helped create supercomputers that we now carry around in our pockets. Really, everything around you right now has been created from someone's vision. These visions inspire us to take action. But it's really interesting when we slow down to think about ourselves. We often don't take time to think about what is my vision for who I want to become one day. We tend to only focus on goals that will give us some form of instant gratification, and Clear argues that in order to create lasting and sustainable change, it's imperative that we first and foremost begin by imagining, who do I want to become? There's a great diagram that he uses in the book that I've used to help me create various different changes in my life. And so the center is who you want to become. The first outside ring are processes. So think inputs, like we just discussed in our last point. And then the outer ring are your outputs. So think goals. So typically people only focus on this outer ring. And as I discussed in my first point, we typically will get stuck in that valley of despair and lose the motivation to continue on. The second level in evolving your thinking goes to my second point around really focusing on instead of outputs. And so when you focus on inputs, you can create forward momentum to help you get to whatever goal you have. But just reaching that goal may not be enough. And so let's use my example that I used in my last point about running a half marathon. And so I created a system and I had a goal and I achieved that goal. I ran a 2-hour half marathon and I was really, really proud of myself. But it became time where I was like, hey, like I love running so much that I don't really care as much about races. I care more about the feeling, the joy, and the stress release that it brought to me in my life, that I really wanted to figure out how can this become a sustainable habit for me versus just a goal that I'm constantly chasing. And so I went deep inside. And so instead of saying, I want to run a half marathon, I started saying, I am a runner. Take a moment to notice the difference there. So saying, I want to be someone who can run a half marathon versus I am a runner. I am a runner becomes something that's a part of your identity, something that's a part of who you are, versus just saying that you are going to run a half marathon. That's something that you are going to do or that you've done. And so focusing on that shift in terms of thinking about who you want to become can give you that lasting momentum to ensure that you're creating inputs and outputs in a way that is sustainable, that will help you grow and grow and grow and grow. Claire mentions that your identity starts to form from your habits. And one of my favorite quotes from the book is that every action that you take is a vote for the person that you want to become. Now, this brings me to your coaching question for this week. So please bring out your writing tool of choice and let's get to work. So there's one big question that I want all of you to reflect on this week, and it is, who do I want to become? Sounds easy. Just kidding. Of course, this isn't an easy question to answer. And so if you are having trouble with that, some guidance that I would give is that it can be easier to start with your goal and then work backwards. And so say, for example, maybe your goal was to learn to play the guitar. So the first step is to start to think about what type of person learns to play the guitar. Well, a musician is the type of person who can play the guitar. And so start to evolve that goal to something more like, I want to become a musician. Sit with that for a while. And then once you're ready, have that courage to take it a leap further and say, am a musician. This becomes that inner circle, that core, that North Star, that vision for yourself that is going to help fuel you to develop the inputs that you need and the outputs, which are a course of goals that you will realize in a sustainable way over time. Another example might be, maybe you have a goal to get a promotion this year. And so the question would be, what type of person gets a promotion? Or maybe you're experiencing a lot of loneliness right now. And so a question could be, what type of person has friends to hang out with on the weekend? So all of these are just examples and hopefully will help give you a little bit of fuel to get going. So start here, start with really starting to articulate the type of person you want to become. Start to get that courage to take the leap, to turn it into an I am statement. And that is your work for next week. All right, you have your coaching question for this week. Would love to hear your outcomes if you want to leave it in a comment below. Would love to engage with you and hear what you're thinking. If you want to continue along and watch this series all about how I want to help you reach your full potential, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I've also included a link to James Clear's book below, so if you'd like to purchase a copy, please follow that link. And I've included a free guide for you on how to retain more of what you're reading. And so this is a personal system that I've created throughout the years that has helped me consume a lot more material and increase my overall comprehension. So definitely invite you to get that free guide below. Cheers to all of you. Enjoy the rest of your coffee, and I hope that you have a great week.